Hello there, you're watching and listening to another Scoutcast on www.fantasyfootballscout.co.uk, and my name is Mark.
And my name's John T.
Hello John T, and we've got a special guest this week, no less than Simon March, aka Dufflinks, aka the world's #1. Welcome, Simon.
Thank you, it's a pleasure to be here.
And thanks for stepping in to replace none other than Granville. Granville won't be with us tonight. He was a bit at a stag do over the weekend, believe it or not, John T. And he went to the. Did he go to the Bernabeu? Bernabeu, I think.
No, he went to one of the best stadiums I've ever been to. He went to see Atletico Madrid at home. I think they were hosting Valencia, and he was on Twitter yesterday.
I saw on Facebook as well. There was a picture of him in the manager's seat, wasn't there? At the he's either got the job there, or he was.
I think he looks like he did the kind of tourist trail to Real Madrid, and then for the proper football went to the Madrid's proper football team.
That's right. It looked like he was at Madrid's there for that one. But
when
anyway,
I went, but it's a fabulous stadium. So yeah. Good luck.
So Granville won't be with us. He's probably in an airport somewhere, licking his wounds after United's defeat, but we've just witnessed to Arsenal. So perhaps it's best he's not here because we just spend about 10 minutes talking about United, wouldn't we? So.
But not a bad replacement, the world #1. That's pretty good.
No, that's right. So we pulled the stops out there. We've gone up a few ranks to introduce Simon. Simon, just we'll explain. So you're currently in Singapore. That's where you live, isn't it? So what time is it over there?
Yeah, it is. So it's just past 6 a.m. Over here. Yeah. So if it looks like I've just woken up, it's because I have just woken up. I'll try and pull it together for the.
Don't worry, Simon. Just again, you're replacing Granville, who's never a pretty picture, along with myself. So just woken up is a fresh look compared to what they normally get.
Excellent.
Thank you.
So are you normally up at this time of day? Have we dragged you out of bed?
No, I'm not normally up at this time of day, but it's a pleasure to be up, for the Scoutcast. I'm certainly happy to do that.
Well, thanks so much, George. We've got a lot of questions in the community.
I was going to say, have you got to go to work soon, or are you all right? You got enough time?
I've got time. Yeah.
So I know that Jonty's already prepared lots of questions to the community. Jonty, do you want to tell the guys out there how they can get and join in?
Yeah,
and maybe find us a few more.
I've just posted up on the website, and there's in the hot topics column on the side. There's a link to the YouTube channel with the Scoutcast, which is going live now. You can leave comments there, or you can visit us on Twitter, which is FFS Scout, and also on the main site as well. So there's a hot topic there with the link up. You can just leave some comments there, and we'll try and get through some of them. But we've also had some pre-prepared from earlier. Prime the community.
Yeah, not surprisingly, they want a piece of you, Simon. So this is going to be a very special Scoutcast. Probably going to waver from because Granville's not here. We'll waver from the usual template and dedicate it quite rightly to Dufflinks and his season so far. Before we start, though, we should review the game week just gone, all three of us, because it was a double game week, so it was special. First of the season. Granville's not here. He didn't captain Harry Kane, so he'll have a tale of woe to tell us.
Yes.
All three of us did, of course. Simon's not going to make an error on that. But Granville, John T, not the best game week for you. 78 points.
No, it was okay. I always treated this game week as this and the blank together, because I think you get a blank and you get a double, and so the hit I took was kind of over that time. So I got silver in last week, and this week, I mean, I did everything right. It just I didn't have the key elements to get a good score. So I had captain Kane, drafted Ericsson in, fine, got Austin in, fine, scored a goal. Had the other players in place, but I had silver as well, which was great. But the bit where my difference between an okay game week to a great one, which I know you and Simon had a pretty good one, was having Hazard and silver. So I've only had silver, so I missed out on Hazard's points there. And if you haven't got Hazard and silver, which I know that's yourself, you need your differential, your fourth midfielder to shine. And for me, that was Santi Cazorla, and he didn't. I know for many others, and I'm sure you'll come on to that, your differential did shine, so that was the difference in the points, really. So I can see what happened there, but there wasn't much more I could do. I had silver come in, and I drafted in the right Spurs players, and Charlie Austin happy to have for the next few weeks. So yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, Koscielny let you down as well. That I didn't see that coming. When Gabriel got the nod over Mertesacker, I didn't see Koscielny being rested.
Yeah, and the strange thing with that as well is that meant, through a quirk of fate, Jeff Cameron, who was one of my wildcard blunders, was sitting on my bench with 6 points this week. So I should have played him over Koscielny, but who would do that? But yeah, no, that was a real surprise with Koscielny. But it looks like his replacement was injured, so I can't see Koscielny being dropped again. I think that was a bit of a fixture congestion one-off, and hopefully he'll be there. But yeah, I want to keep him, especially because Arsenal look like they've got a double game week coming up soon.
Yeah, they have, thanks to tonight's result. So I mean, that's the result we all wanted, and we've got that. So it looks like there's a big double game week coming up in game week 34. Could be a while before that's confirmed, but it looks pretty.
So how your team this week, Mark? How did you do? You were one of those that got a pretty good score. So
yeah, I did okay. I mean, Mane was the differential for me, and he did the business. So without that, it would have been probably pretty average. Like as you say, that differential was crucial. I mean, we all went. We discussed it last week. We all went Austin, Eriksen, Kane. Simon, I guess that's the route you went, was it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Same route. Looking back, I mean, I don't regret obviously getting those players in because they scored well. But looking at the players that I took out, which was Giroud and is it Mane or Moon? Mane, yeah. Mane, yeah. Sorry. I think I would have been about 5 points up if I had just done nothing last week. So. Yeah, that's the way the double game weeks go sometimes. But yeah, you can't complain about. I think I got 90 points and extended the lead by a whopping 1 point.
Well, Singapore, it all counts at this stage in the game. I mean, it's funny. Yeah. I was the same when I got rid of Giroud, and he obviously scored at QPR and he got maximum bonus, and so Austin I didn't break even on that. I lost points there. But yeah, it's tough, isn't it? When double game weeks come round and you feel like you've got to go for it. The players you get rid of, unless they're injured or suspended, it's tough because obviously we've all got hope to have decent players in our team. So you're getting rid of decent players, and Mane and Giroud were decent players. It
was an odd double game week as well because most of the top 10,000, top 1,000 had Eriksen, Kane, and Austin, and once you've discounted Austin, there's no other QPR options really. I mean, you could take a punt on Phillips maybe, and you would have got some points. Whereas with Spurs, it was. I mean, I don't know of anyone who got Mason in, or Chadley, or Townsend. I mean, all these other players that got points, and I mean, they would have done well. But I mean, you would talk maybe a handful of the top 1,000 would have done that. But it's just one of those odd weeks. They're very, very low owned differentials did well, and the three big players, the Eriksen, Austin, and Kane all came in well.
So Simon, what we can't do in this Scoutcast is give away too many of your secrets, because obviously you're out there on top. We want you to stay there, and so we've got to be careful what you say. So I'll ask Jonty this. So you've got Austin, Eriksen, and Kane. Presumably you're keeping Kane because that would be suicidal.
Yeah.
Eriksen and Austin, you're quite happy to hold, are you?
I'm happy with Austin. I mean, we were talking about it behind the scenes when we were talking about the watch list over the weekend, watch list changes, and you were saying that you didn't feel that Austin had good fixtures coming up, and I can see why, because he's got a lot of away fixtures. But the way I look at it is the way QPR were playing, the way he played against Spurs, and indeed Arsenal as well. He's so attacking. I just feel he's going to get a goal most games. The rest they'll lose. I think QPR will lose more than they'll win. But I just feel that he's got points in him. And there are better strikers, obviously. I mean, I think going forward, Giroud definitely and Costa. But I think with Austin at the moment, I've got other issues to deal with, and Austin for me will stay. Now, I mean, Eriksen's one I'm thinking of. I'm probably going to bench him this week. I think a lot of people will against Manchester United
at Old Trafford.
Old Trafford, just because I think after the defeat to Arsenal just now in the cup, I just think they'll tighten it up, and they know how to they know how to defend most of the time, especially against teams like that. You know, when Chelsea racked up, that was a tight game as well. Spurs won't be going too gung ho, I don't think, and I think Kane's enough for that.
Yeah,
so,
and Eriksen's form's not great, is it? I think it's 1 assist in 5, 1 assist in 6 even. So
he's got fabulous underlying stats. He's getting more into the box than he's done in recent weeks as well. When he first started, really, he was getting these great goals, these kind of showboat, these free kicks from like several miles out, and those things are the things that people really like to see their player do. But I just think I think he's getting a much more attacking. He's got good underlying stats, good fixtures. I'm happy to keep him, but I'm sure we'll come to what we're doing in future. It all depends on some price rises for me. I'm 0.1 away from Cazorla to Hazard.
Okay, you need Hazard back.
I need Hazard back, yeah. And so if there's a change in that, I don't want to be taking a hit this week. If there's a change in that, then I will get rid of Eriksen for Hazard, because Eriksen's a good player. But I don't think he's in that elite category of where he's going to get a hat trick possibly.
No, he's not. He's not that. He's still not. I wouldn't say he's heavy hitter just yet. He's pushing it, but he's not quite there yet. Which is why I'm kind of wary of holding on to him. He's got good fixtures after the Man United game, that's for sure. So if he's going to go for me, it'll probably be this week. But I think I say, at the end of the Scoutcast, we'll talk more on that. I think I've got a few ideas on what to do, but. Okay, Simon. So let's go over to you. Let's talk business now, because you're the one we really people want to hear from. So I was looking up at your records on Fantasy Football Scout, because you've been with us quite a while. You're not new to the site at all. So it's even better that you're right up there, because you're a bit of an FFS veteran. I looked up, and it seems you registered with us back in August 2011, and it took you about a month to pluck up the courage to post your first comment. But I found it. I found your first comment on FFS, and you're like this. It was your first comment was Nasri and Brown / Woodgate or Bale and Company, and you went on to say any advice much appreciated. So it was quite a humble introduction to FFS. But let's go through this again. You were looking at Nasri, okay, Brown or Woodgate, both very injury prone, no goal threat, suspect defenders, or Bale and Company. Is that really? Do you remember that comment, Simon? Oh, lost you there.
I think his sound's gone.
Yeah, I think Simon's sound's gone. I think it's
I think he's realising that.
Line. Yeah, he's sorting it out.
He's looking it down.
Is he on mute? So. Oh, he's back.
No.
No, we've lost him. Just as we're bringing him in, I want to know what he did.
Silenced him.
Did he do bad?
I was noting as well. As we were talking then on the YouTube channel. One of our regular listeners, Andy85WSM, noted. He said, "Have you? Has anyone told him what happened when our previous #1 Luke came on the show, and some of the other high-performing managers they meet?"
We did have Tom on after that. This is why I've said, don't tell us any of your transfers or any of your thinking on that, which is going to get difficult when we get onto community questions. Although not so difficult if we can't hear from him. Don't understand what's happened there. We'll have to see if he can log back in again.
Obviously, we can.
Simon, can you try logging out and log it back in again?
I think that's what he's trying. So I think we're all right there. We can edit that bit out conveniently in the final wonderful edited version.
That's fine. That's fine. We'll go over that question in a minute. But 2011. So he has been around a long time. He's one of our veterans, which is great to see that he's up there. And yeah, that was obviously a dilemma back then. Bale or Company or Nasri or Woodgate.
Well, that was back in the days when. But that was back in the days when Bale was the kiss of death to Spurs, where every time he started, they lost, and it was becoming a real issue. So yeah, Bale was quite a dodgy player back then. Hello, Simon, can you hear us?
2011. That was well before that he actually found his form. Are you back there, Simon?
No, he's still.
This is typical because it was totally fine before we started. So
He's trying I can see little bits coming up. He's trying. He's muting, unmuting. I can't see what the issue is.
this is when Granville's not here, so it all falls apart, John T. That's basically it. And we based the entire show around Simon, so now we're struggling.
Yeah.
So,
what we could do is move on to some other bits and then come back to him.
yeah, we can try. We'll try and get him back in a minute. Shall we talk about the?
Yeah, I'll just scroll down the list.
He's not getting. He's going to log in again straight away.
Okay,
Okay, let's move on to the board, John T. Let's talk about transfers in, transfers out.
Yes.
So top of the transfers, Henderson's in there. We picked him out today in the digest as the player of the game week, mainly because we couldn't rattle on about Harry Kane again because that just was boring. Although he's making it very difficult for us to avoid rattling on about Harry Kane.
Well, I think Henderson's a good.
But Henderson, not some consistency now.
I mean, it's just Liverpool's fixtures aren't great, but the immediate fixtures aren't great. But I think Henderson's all right, actually. I mean, he's someone I've put in my scout picks for a number of weeks. He's priced at 6.3. It's 15% ownership, and that must be even smaller in the top 10,000. And with Gerrard out, he's settling into the kind of vice captain and obviously soon to be captain of Liverpool role. Really well. I noticed in the FA Cup game, just looking at little things that are good for fantasy managers. He's taking corners, he's doing those key passes in, and he's getting involved. Other players are seeking him out when he gets forwards. I'm not saying he's a Steven Gerrard in his prime by any stretch of the imagination, but in a fantasy terms, he's getting these odd goals, he's getting the odd assists, and also you've got to remember he's actually on penalties as well, as far as I can tell. When Balotelli stole the ball off him, I think it was some kind of kind of arrangement. Yes, he did. They have some kind of arrangement with penalties whereby if Balotelli starts, and Gerrard's not on the pitch, then Balotelli takes the penalty. If Balotelli is a sub, which he often is, and Gerrard's not on the pitch, and Henderson is the penalty taker. So that's the way it goes there. So I don't think he's bad at all. I mean, I think if you're looking for someone different, he's good. But I noticed next on the list is Silva. Can't fault that really. And we had some some of the questions from the community earlier were asking specifically about you, Mark, because they noted that you don't have Silva in your team. But I mean, what's your thinking about Silva? There's no doubting his ability, but do you think you will ever get him? And I say that because there'll be lots like you in your position.
Yeah, no, I flirt with him all the time. He's a player that I love. I absolutely love him, mainly because it was a good thing. Not many footballers can boast that, but I struggle with him. Like Granville, we both had him in our team from time to time, but he's never really delivered consistently. But you've got to stick with him, and he's doing it now. I think it's like 8 goals and 11. He's just been superb of late. I just always see him as a bit of a risk.
I think we discussed it last week, and was saying that he's one of these players you've either got to have in all the time and accept these 2 points every now and again, or just not bother with. As I said last week, I got him in. I'm just going to stick with him, hope for the best.
Yeah, but you got him in at the loss of Hazard, and that's the problem. It's like getting someone
So essentially what I've done is I've swapped out a really good player for another really good player. They both scored. There was Silva got 1 point more than Hazard, which was pretty much of a muchness. I might as well not have bothered. But this kind of week, I'd probably still want Silva in. I noticed with Simon's team, hopefully we can get sound back for him. He's one of the players, one of the managers that has Hazard and Silva, and I think if you've got Hazard and Silva and all the usuals like Kane and Sanchez and a Chelsea defender, then you've got half your team is going to be scoring lots of points every week. So yeah, I think Hazard Silva. I feel comfortable. After I've got Hazard back in, I'll look at that and I'll feel much more comfortable about my game weeks, I think.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is, it's just that's an established template, and it is you can't see anyone ever getting rid of those players once they've got them in. No. So
it is
the challenge for people chasing Simon is how they're gonna catch him with that.
Well, I mean, I haven't got a hope in hell of catching him, so I'm quite happy to kind of emulate that kind of success, really.
So next on the list, transfers is Berahino, who's above Charlie Austin. We had a little discussion on this earlier in the week because you were backing Austin above Berahino in the watch list. I don't see it. I think Berahino is the better option. There's not a lot in it.
Well, I was looking at underlying stats. That was the key for me, and I looked at shots in the box the last 4, 6, 2 matches. I couldn't even find Berahino. He was so far down. I mean, he was in the bargain basement. Whereas Austin was right up there. He was 3rd or 4th. It was like 10, 12. I think we can hear Simon. Are you back with us in the land of sound?
So can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. You're back.
Yeah, so I've switched over to a far less sophisticated method. So sound quality might not be so good, but at least you can hear me.
It's fine. It's brilliant. It's good to have you back. We were just discussing.
No, we're having some troubles anyway this week.
Yeah. We were just discussing the all aboard and the hot transfers in. So we were discussing the merits of Silva, Berahino, Austin, Henderson. These are the top guys there. And I've mentioned that you are one of those with Silva and Hazard, which has been, I think, it's proved a really effective combination. I mean, what's your feelings about Silva? We were just saying he's one of these players you've either got to have in and accept, he might not score well, or you just leave alone. So, what is Silva kind of a popular player with you?
Absolutely, yeah. I think players like Hazard and Silva. I mean, they're quite different, but I think Silva's one of those players that, they're both similar in the sense that you have to kind of put up with maybe 4 game weeks where they're going to blank and then they're going to, go crazy and hit a brace or, get a few assists. The fact that they play in teams that regularly score a lot of goals and, they're consistent, proven FPL players. I'm a big fan of Silva. I feel like, there's a conception that he's maybe, or a perception that he's underperformed. In the past, but actually when you look at his points over the last 4 seasons, I mean, he's a really consistent performer. He's on a lot of set pieces for a team that you probably expect to score most goals in the league. And this season he seems to have upped his game in terms of threat in front of goal.
I think if you've got most people have got Aguero as well, and I know you have, and I think also he's that kind of, for me, he's like a kind of a safety net. Because if Aguero getting 2 points against Leicester at home was a shock. I mean, a real shock to those that captained him, like our absent friend Granville. But that is a shock. But if you've got Silva as well, then you've got it covered because one of those two is going to get those goals. So it's nice. It's nice feeling to have him. I'm pleased.
So John, do you want to go through some of the questions from the community before we lose Simon altogether? Because you never know, this could be
time. We're going to get you quick. So we've got some. Now this is a good opener here from AVB, which is that you've never finished in the top 1,000 in your last 5 seasons. So you're a veteran at this. You know what you're doing, but you've never been in that top 1,000, and then suddenly you're number 1, and you've been in the top 10 for a couple of months now. So what is it this season that you're doing differently?
I mean, I've had a couple of good seasons in the past. I finished top 6 and top 3 a couple of times, and then last season just everything was a disaster, and I think a lot of people felt the same way. This season, I I think it's been flexibility. I mean, I started off, being quite relaxed about my approach to the game, and really it was sort of setting my team up. I think there's a temptation, particularly in pre-season, to set your team up for the rest of the season, whereas the reality is that more than likely by the time you get to week 6 or even week 10, your team will probably have changed 80-90%. So what I did was set up the team to not be too. I think there's a decent balance between defence, midfield, and forward line.
So as soon as a good player emerged, you were like a week or two away from getting them, rather than wholesale surgery.
Exactly. Yeah. So I've tried all the popular strategies on the Fantasy Football Scout website of trying Uber in defence and things like that. But this season went for a much more balanced approach, that has really made a great deal of difference, because historically I wildcarded. I've been playing for 6 seasons, so I think this is the first season that I haven't wildcarded within the first 3 weeks.
See, that's the frightening bit for your rivals, because you've still got this wildcard, and we're going to be getting double game weeks coming up. So presumably you're going to be using that to take advantage of the double game weeks.
I will. I probably will. Yeah, but wildcards can go either way. So the good thing, and as a neutral as far as Arsenal are concerned, I'm quite glad that they won tonight, because obviously that's going to throw up a big double game week, probably in game week 34. And that's something that I can take advantage of. But the problem with wildcards is that people tend to set them up to create the best teams either based on what's happened historically or what's happening this next game week. Whereas the key, I suppose, to a good wildcard is setting your team up for something that's going to perform well for the next 6 games. And Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, Man City, all these teams from game week 34 onwards have all got strong fixtures. Assuming that they've all got something to play for in that period, then backing those is probably going to reap the benefits.
So one thing I wanted to ask you, Simon, was I looked at the top 10 teams with the wildcard situation, and there's only one in the top 10 who's got a wildcard as well as you, which is Cecilia Pinto, who used to be in the Scout League but since left. But she's the only one who's got a wildcard as well. So have you looked at that? How much do you look at the teams? I think this is a question from the community, Jonty, wasn't it? How much do you look at the teams below you and the position that they're in, or at the moment are you just taking it one game week at a time, as managers would like to say?
Yeah, well, it's a bit of both, to be honest. I mean, it's quite humbling to when I've been lucky enough to be in competitive game mini leagues with some really good players, so it's quite humbling that now my rivals are all in sort of single figures and in terms of ranking. I do check them out, but they keep changing, and it's because I think there's maybe 20 points between first position and maybe 30 points between first position and 20th position, so things can really change very, very rapidly. I remember being in second place and being 30 points behind the leader, and now I'm maybe 40 points behind 40 points ahead of that same player, and there's probably been about 3 or 4 game weeks in between there, so it's very, very possible that the same thing could happen to me. So I think that you really do have to play your own game at this point. I know it's an enormous cliche, but you really do have to play your own game, because if you look too much at other people or the people behind you, then you're leaving yourself exposed to the person that's going to captain the person in that top 50 that's going to captain the player that you're not expecting, who will randomly score a hat trick in the game week, and suddenly they become a big contender and possibly overtake you. So yeah, concentrating on my own game with a sort of peripheral view of everybody else.
There was another apart from having your wild card still intact, another interesting part of your team I noticed, and this is a question from Silver Surfer, he's noticed it as well, is that you haven't taken any point hits all season. So considering you haven't used your wild cards, I think that's pretty impressive. But is there a particular reason behind that, or do you plan to go the whole season without any hits?
I have been. I mean, honestly, so I've been playing this is my 6th season, and I've probably, I know that I've actually played 4. I've taken 4 points hits in all 6 seasons.
What? 4?
Yeah, and I can name them all for you actually.
What? Was it Wes Brown and Jonathan Woodgate by any chance?
Nazarene.
At the time, they made sense.
No, we'll let that lie.
No. Yeah, no. The first one was James Collins, who I took out, who I brought in for a hit, and maybe that scarred me a little bit because I can't. Yeah, exactly. I can't explain. I can't rationalise that decision. But yeah, otherwise it's been cases where I've really needed to get a player in, and I know their price is rising, and you're forced into the situation. That was the case with Bale, or it was a situation I think season maybe before last where we had a game week where there were maybe 6 fixtures, and I had to bring in a couple of Newcastle and QPR players in order to make sure that I had 10 players. Yeah, so that doesn't really count as a hit. I mean, I don't really philosophically have anything against the idea of taking hits. I think some people, turn it into an art form. To be honest, I just when I look at it, I think of the 4 or 5 things that would have to go right for it to pay off, and I generally just talk myself out of it.
I think would indicate you must be good at planning ahead. I mean, you mentioned with your wild card, you've got to think 6 game weeks ahead, and I think that's really good advice. But you must have, you must be constantly thinking like a chess player, 6, 7 game weeks with every move you're making, because I can't see how you would, because I'm not that keen on hits either. I always take 6, 7, maybe 8 a season, but I need them because I've run out of players. They're all injured or something. So would that say that is a key? You say you play your game, but would you say planning ahead is your game?
Possibly, yeah. I mean, it's more a case of being flexible, and especially this season, being really flexible about things. So keeping yourself, open, in terms of the balance in your team, carrying over transfers. I think if there's been one significant difference between the way I played it this season and past seasons, is that I've as much as possible tried to carry over that second transfer, because you can do a lot more with your team with 2 transfers than you can with 1, and that has definitely reaped benefits.
Yeah. I was just going to say that. I mean, that would also indicate that you're not easily swayed by bandwagons, because one of the reasons most people would take those, each week you look at that plum fixture and you think, I haven't got that player, I want to get that player in, but you hold firm there, and you just decide to leave it for a week, and it's paid off clearly.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to accept that you can't have all the best players all the time. That there are going to be certain players, and so if you can boil it down to a certain thing, then it's that if you score 64 points average game week, then the chances are you'll probably win the league. You'll probably win your mini leagues almost certainly, so it's a case of looking at your team and sort of saying, okay, is this a team that overall can deliver me that? and that's all the more significant this season, I think, because there hasn't been a consistent captain scorer.
No.
I haven't done the Gargatron thing in a while, but last time I did it, I think I maybe scored 20% of my points were from captaincy, which is much lower than past seasons.
Yeah, but I think everyone's experienced that. We haven't got a Suarez or a Van Persie, and when we captain Aguero and when we captain Hazard, it just never seems to work. But this does lead on, what you were just saying there, it does lead on to another question from 16 Shimmick 16, which said, which player do you think you will regret not having in the coming weeks? And I'm going to put a name out there for you, because I noticed you've got John Terry, and Ivanovic is scoring much more heavily than John Terry, and yeah, so that's just a name there. But yeah, which player do you think you might regret not having?
Yeah, so I think Ivanovic is definitely one. Any player that's highly owned at the moment, that has the expensive or the potential to be explosive, like Ivanovic or a Sterling, or even at the moment Costa. These are the players. I've somehow gone through the season without having a single Liverpool player, so I wonder about Sterling and Coutinho, but yeah, more than I think the one that really sort of plays in my mind at the moment is Giroud. That's maybe the mistake that I made was bringing him out, especially since he got a rest tonight. You've got to believe that he's probably going to start the next few league games.
And West Ham concede a lot of shots in the box, particularly away from home. So I think I'm a bit nervous not having Giroud.
Yeah,
but then
I'm already regretting selling him. It was when he scored at QPR, I kind of cursed, and then again, like you say, Simon, tonight you saw him rested, so he's going to play the West Ham game.
I think we mentioned that in the last Scoutcast, Mark. I remember you were saying that you were going to get Austin in, and I remember saying if I had Giroud, I probably wouldn't have made that move, but I had Defoe, so it was a very easy move to make to get Austin in. But
for me, it's not. You're doubling on that Arsenal midfield with Sanchez and Cazorla, and I just don't. I see Giroud as the second option.
I think you're right. I think it is. It's Giroud and Sanchez or Özil.
One thing I want to ask you, Simon, is we were talking beforehand, which is something came up about the fact because you were in Singapore with the time difference and watching matches. I don't know if you heard, but last year we spoke to Tom Fenley, who obviously is the reigning champion, and he did an interview with us afterwards, and one of the things he picked out was, above all, watch as much football as you can. And we were talking beforehand, and it turns out you don't watch live games at all, hardly.
Yeah, no, I don't. I mean, I read that. I read Tom Fenley's notes, and actually that probably has influenced a little bit of the way that I've approached it this season in terms of going in with the balance, like being flexible, giving yourself options. But yeah, I've honestly probably watched about 5 live games all season, it's. I mean, it's it's a negative on some levels, but on the positive, it means that you don't watch a Newcastle game. I mean, back in the UK where I come from, I would watch every single football game that was on television, and I'd frequently watch games and think things like Remy Cabella's getting forward, I'll maybe bring him in instead of Mane or Sigurdsson or something like that, and now I was talking to a friend of mine about this the other day, and they sort of joked, and they said that possibly the way that I view football now is sort of like that scene in The Matrix where he's watching the computer-generated world in binary code.
Yeah, I was going to say. So, do you rely on data purely to give you the analysis of the players? Because you can't, if you're not watching football, you've got to be getting that kind of view. Is that? I do and I don't. I mean, I am a really big football fan, so I read everything that I can, and I've had I've been a football fan for a very, very long time, and so you can start to sort of see, and a fantasy football
manager for this is my 6th season, and over that time you can start to see certain patterns throughout the season, and so therefore this season I didn't go in with a particular strategy. I went in with the idea of, okay, I'm going to adapt my strategy to whatever's going on at the time, and that's very much things like the beginning of the season, having proven starters with some balance, for anything that might not turn out to your expectations, and being in a position where you're able to adapt to what's going on. That has very much been the key, I think.
Do you? There's a couple of questions here related to kind of thinking, which you possibly. I don't know whether you're thinking about winning it. You're number one, and you have been about that. But it is a big difference between being in that state now and actually starting to think that you might win it. So Green Windmill, who is, I want to point out, he is the leader of our. Yeah, he's in the top 100. He's the leader of our moderators and contributors lead at Fantasy Football Scout. He also asks, by the way, that Mark not hire you as moderator or contributor this season so that you don't join our league. Because that
cool.
would be the ultimate gazumping in mini league history. Have the world number one come in. So yes. But he asks, how many points do you think? So you're coming to game week 37, just finished. You're tallying up the points. Say you're first. What is the points gap that you feel you would need so you can breathe a sigh of relief and think, right, I've got this in the bag?
Well, bearing in mind that Tom nearly lost it at the end last year as well.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I can only judge by, because I've never been in this situation before, I can only judge by mini leagues. I think the last time I won my mini league, I was maybe 70 points ahead going into the last game week.
You felt confident.
Well, I was, but not entirely, and because who knows what can happen in football, especially on the last game of the season. But I've also had experiences where I've been in mini leagues top for months, throughout this whole period, throughout the whole sort of winter spring period. And then at the last minute, I mean, echoing back to a point where a friend of I was top, and somebody in my mini league captained Dirk Coy, who absolutely crazy.
He got a hat trick, did he?
Yeah, scored something like 5 goals in 2 games.
He's the king of the differentials.
Yeah, and so the obvious strategy for me being in front was to bring in Dirk Coy, who then proceeded to score nothing, and then Charles Zogbia, who my rival happened to have, then went on to score a hat trick. And
I remember that season.
Yeah, exactly. So I think this is why I very much believe that you have to play your own game. I try not to play the game with the idea that of being number one in the world, as much as it's very nice and it's quite exciting and surreal to be in this position.
I've got another question. Thinking even further ahead. If you won, so you won. Okay, we're thinking ahead. There you are, lounging in your VIP box or whichever football stadium as part of the prize. And do you carry on playing again? Because some of our previous the winners of FPL have kind of dabbled in it a bit more and then kind of petered off. And some like Spider Matt, who won it a couple of seasons ago. He's very much still into it. He's every Friday night he has a kind of an FPL surgery on Twitter and active member of our site still, and still very much. So what if you did win it? Would that be it, or you carry on?
I think if I won it would be hard to. I mean, you can't top it, obviously. But I do love the game, and the community is excellent, and which Fancy Football Scout has a lot of credit for, and so within there you would miss those guys if you weren't catching up with them day to day.
Besides, you'll be working for us next season anyway, so you've got to carry on playing. You can't give up. No,
I think you should sign him up. No, Mark, I think you should sign him up game week 37.
Game week 37, yeah, drop him straight into the league.
Green Wimble enjoy his second place.
You say this now, but I mean, as Andrew Green Wimble pointed out last week, that Scoutcast has not got a great history of driving people on to win the.
We have ruined many a leader.
Regardless,
absolutely.
Regardless of if you win it or not, so I mean, anyone who can get top of the FPL with not taking a hit, not using their wild card, having watched 4 matches, you don't have to win it for us to tell us that. That's pretty extraordinary. So people have got a lot to learn from that.
I appreciate it, but I mentioned this to my fiance. I'm not going to call it the Fancy Scoutcast curse or anything, but I mentioned it to my fiance, and she responded by buying me this lucky cat.
Oh my God!
So yeah, I think I'm probably all right. He's guarding the situation.
Once again, a cat makes an appearance on the Scoutcast. We can't keep.
I'm going to call it Granville.
You should definitely. No, it's
in its absence. Yeah.
No, I mean it's a very difficult situation that you're in here because it's. I remember when this is about the last time last year we spotted Tom in the top 10 and he hadn't used his wild card. He was the only manager who hadn't, but he was a good 20 odd points behind. But I remember getting in touch with Tom at the time because he entered our cup competition and he was highly ranked in that. And I had a look at his team and thought, with a wild card as well, and no one else in the top 20, I don't think had a wild card at that point. I think there was 7 or 8 weeks to go. I thought to myself, this guy could win it, and so we dropped him a line. And as it turned out, I think it was game week 30, might have been 34 again or 35 when he played his wild card, and that basically put him at a point where it looked like it was now a saleable lead. I think he had like 16, 17 point lead going into the final week, and then that guy at the end, Captain Zeko, and almost closed the gap right at the death. And there was 1 point in it at the end. It was an extraordinary end to the season. Whereas I look at your situation now, and I don't want to say it's yours to lose because that puts pressure on even more, but it is an extraordinary position to be in because normally at this point there's like 5 or 6 points in it, and there has been just a few weeks ago. But like you so rightly said, it can turn so quickly. I mean, Granville and I were very close 5 or 6 weeks ago, and it's obviously what the gap has widened to a few decisions here and there. So it's such a tough situation to be in, really.
Yeah, and it encourages people as it goes on. It encourages people to take more and more risks as well. So being 30 points ahead is nice in the sense that it feels like I can make 1, maybe 2 big mistakes for the rest of the season. But the reality is that come game week 34, everything's going to change. And last 5 game weeks of the season, it's going to be an absolute lottery. And if I'm up there at the end of that, then I'll be really, really pleased. But I think there's a lot to be played between now and then. I think leads at the moment probably don't mean as much as they do, probably around kind of game week 35, 36.
So I mean, you must be hoping for the most boring climax of the season ever because you've got to be looking at it and going, well, I don't want Sterling to come out of the woodwork again. I don't want Sturridge to explode. I need Giroud to go off the boil. You kind of just want the template to just coast their way to the end, because if that does happen, it's going to be very hard for people to make ground. But as I say, if a Sturridge or something like that just finds form and someone takes a punt, that's the danger. So I mean, how much are you you're looking on and going, I don't want that player to hit form, or I just want the status quo to remain. It must be a lot of that feeling like that.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I've got a wild card which is potentially beneficial. Should it come to make a sort of game week 34, and like I say, there are some teams following on from there, that will have a double game week in game week 34 by the looks of things, that will actually have good fixtures for the rest of the season. But the reality for me right now is that you want everything to be as absolutely consistent as possible, and the more randomness or the more chaos that's introduced into the equation makes it all the more difficult.
So as the sun comes up on that Singapore skyline, John T, any more questions from the community?
Yeah, I'll do it. I mean, we've covered most of the issues there, but just the last one here. I suppose this is a bit of advice from you, Simon, if you're so without revealing too much of your own kind of team. But there's more advice. Well, us mere mortals would do, us without wildcards, and so this is from Ryan FX7. He says basically we've got Silva, Hazard, Sanchez. That's what a lot of people have got in their midfield. Then they might have a fifth midfield. I know you've got Boyd still. Is your fifth midfielder?
Yeah.
But so the fourth midfielder is something. This is a role that we've talked about a lot. This is the kind of 6 to 8.5 million type midfielder. From now going forward, next few game weeks, who would you? This isn't necessarily your plans, but who would you recommend us mere mortals with our template midfield would get for a good fourth midfielder?
Honestly, right now, I think most people have got the template. Some people the variables around between it seem to be like Ericsson or a Sterling or Coutinho. Or something like that. But right now, I think until game week 34, I would play as conservative as possible, and let other people move too early and respond to that.
Who would be the conservative fourth midfield choice then?
I think Ericsson has got good fixtures. I mean, it kind of depends on obviously the other three who people have. Ericsson, Sterling, all these players. But anybody could explode within there. I quite like Sigurdsson over the next few fixtures.
So
Mane, even though I took him out. So.
Yeah, so not taking a risk on a wild punt, and but definitely going for Sigurdsson. I think that's that would make sense.
The thing is, Tom was in the same situation last year, and you don't have to take risks. I mean, Simon doesn't have to do that. So that kind of the midfield area is the one area where people are going to make a gamble. And I think you looked at punch, and recently that worked out for you.
Yeah.
There's someone like Mahrez at Leicester. They've got 7 home games and 11. So I mean, he could be one that could potentially get 3 or 4 goals between now and the end of the season, given that Leicester are fighting for their lives. I mean, it's the one kind of slot, that fourth and fifth midfield slot is where I'm identifying that I can make up further ground. I've got Mane, and I think Mane is a good buy for that in that price bracket. I just think Southampton are struggling at the moment, but if they are going to score, he's going to be in amongst the points. So I'm still backing him, but I just think in Simon's situation, it's the one position he's just going to, like he says, it's a very wise tactic to just stick.
Yeah.
Reserve your transfers.
With an Ericsson, Sigurdsson. Yeah. I mean, I think so. I mean, I think the last game week on the double game week showed just how important that fourth midfield slot is. I mean, as you said, you had Mane, and came in, and I've had Punchin the week before, and these are the players that are keeping us going. Really, I mean, if you didn't have Mane, then you'd have dipped down. I mean, same with me if I hadn't had Punchin the previous week. So getting that fourth midfield, I think, is absolutely key at the moment, and I'm sure it is for you as well, Simon.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think throughout the season, I was watching the Scoutcast last week, and I was quite nervous in the sense that I think you guys mentioned you must have some great strategy or something, and really I feel like I've been incredibly fortunate. I mean, I could go through the various vice captains or subs that have been brought in and everything, but the reality I think is being flexible making transfers later, carrying that transfer over if you can, having strength in depth at certain times in the season. So there's sometimes where it pays to have Boyd, aka Boydinho, as your fourth midfielder. But then there's also times, at the start of the season, international breaks, Christmas, possibly the running, where it really does pay to have that strength in depth. And people also often on the site complain about leaving points on the bench, and I mean I've done that. I mean I benched Harry Kane against Chelsea for 18 points, and that'll just haunt me for
in that club.
Yeah,
I was going to say, one of the game weeks when we were looking at your team, it was game week 18. There were certain pivotal game weeks in your season so far, and this was the one that got you from about 30 odd in the world into the top 10, where you've been ever since.
Right.
And I was looking at that team, and it was an incredible history there. You completely nailed all the. You got Silva, Sigurdsson, Kane, Costa, and Terry all got double-digit scores. But then I looked down, because every time, the very few occasions I've had a 100+ score. Simon got 108, by the way, in that one. That week. Every time I've got one, it's been one. That kind of luck and fortune that week goes to the bench as well. And you end up with points on the bench, but you completely nailed. I just looked at it, was ridiculous. You got Foster on 1 point, Downing on 2 points. Your top scoring bench player. 1 point for Wisdom and 1 point for Dummett as well. So you completely nailed the bench. Now I just find that's quite rare. So. Obviously, it's a great skill there, but it is that there's that element of luck in doing that as well. That you got that, it just all fell into place that game week, and
yeah,
I mean, it's good that you acknowledge that, because there'll be lots of seething fantasy managers, seething green with envy, saying he's a lucky son. He's just lucky. He's just lucky. I could do that. I could be number one.
No, absolutely. Yeah, massive element of luck. And I mean, my strategy going into that was Boxing Day. I think the game week. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes, it was. It was the looking down. Yes, 26th. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was kind of I suppose the one occasion that I actually got to, or one of the few occasions that I actually got to watch a football game this season, because I was back home in the UK. And Chelsea were on TV, and Costa was not a popular fantasy football pick or captain choice that week, but he ended up delivering. And pretty much everybody did. And I was just saying to you guys just before we went on air that at the end of that day, it was one of the few occasions, because normally being 8 hours ahead where I am living in Asia, I wake up and I see the updated scores. But this is one occasion where I actually got to see my new rank, whilst I was, before I went to bed. I was third in the league. At that point, I'd moved up to third. And I saw it, and I was desperate. I was looking for somebody to talk to about it. And the first person I saw
outside my door.
So who was the poor soul who you could talk to?
It was a choice between my cat or my grandmother, and so, I figured my grandmother would be more responsive to it. So I mentioned it to her, and she says, that's lovely, darling," and I was like, Gran, you don't understand what this means. So I had to go online, and fortunately, there were some people, on the Fantasy Football Scout forum who really understood where I was going.
Gravity of that, yeah. So how are your? I mean, is it starting to affect your personal life in terms of your friends and family, and are they aware of what's going on and that this has suddenly become quite a major thing? I mean, obviously up until now it's been a hobby, but this is, you've got to be taking this seriously now, and presumably it's affecting. You're saying you're going to bed and then waking up and seeing the scores. if that was me, I would be struggling to kind of sleep to see where the bonus points went and stuff like that. I mean, is it getting more difficult in that respect?
Yeah, as it goes on, well, now I'm in position 1. Yeah, it is. I've got to be honest. I think and people are changing. So I think I posted when I hit the top 300. I posted on Facebook. I was like, oh, guys, I hit 300th in the world at fantasy football, 3.5 million players. Everyone's like, oh, that's amazing. And then then suddenly I'm like, 40th, 30th, 10th, 4th, first, and now it's kind of got to the point where people are just like, oh, just
yeah, all of it, aren't they?
Yeah.
Stop spamming me about it. Yeah. But it's funny how it's changed. I mean, I have a long-suffering fiance called Shin, and she, has not always had a very positive view towards fantasy football. But
Tell
now
me about it.
It's sort of like that like in Rear Window, where Jimmy Yeshua has got an obsession and nobody really understands him, and then suddenly his girlfriend and his maid, eventually come on board about halfway through the thing, and now they're all on it, and so like 3 o'clock Sunday morning, my fiance's texting me like, how's your fantasy football team doing?
You've hit really well, mate. You have.
That is a brilliant analogy, including one of my favourite ever films as well. But you're absolutely spot on, because it does become like that. Suddenly, when they realise that, oh, you are doing quite well, then suddenly it's like, they start asking questions, and I get that sometimes. Like, if my mood swings because someone scored me, my captain's done well. My partner will go, oh, you've cheered up. Is your fantasy doing quite well? And I'm like, yeah, I'm not very good at hiding it. So I mean, in your situation, it must be even worse, because in these next few weeks leading up to game week 34, you're going to have quite a roller coaster, I imagine. So it's quite important that they buy into it and know what you're going through, I guess.
Oh, definitely, yeah. I mean, if it comes to game week 38 and I win it, I mean, it'll be full on Stuart Pearce penalty versus Spain reaction, and
on the streets of Singapore.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone ducking for cover. I mean, I would. It would be great to win it. I mean, honestly, it's fantastic to be number 1. I did think that there's a possibility that I might, maybe in the first 2 or 3 game weeks of the season, fluke my original selection, well enough to be in that position, and then I would screenshot it, and make it my profile picture on Facebook and Twitter and everything for goodness knows how long. But the amount of screenshots I've taken since
I think I'd have T-shirts made by now. I think I'd be going to extreme. I've got to say, game week 38. I don't know if you've ever listened to my experience of game week 38 in previous seasons, but I normally get so tense for the guys at the top, because normally there's 1 or 2 people in the Scout League at the top, in with a chance of winning it. I mean, most seasons there's somebody up there, and obviously last year we had Tom, who looked like he was not home and dry, but he had a big lead, and I sit there with a spreadsheet with all the top 10 basically and work out if our guy's got a chance of winning it, where they are. And for you, presumably you're going to have to stay up half the night to experience that, so you're going to be similarly strung out.
Yeah, no, I'd be glad to. Yeah, definitely. But it'll happen. Yeah, hopefully my employers will be understanding the next day about it, because if I win, I don't think I'll be getting much sleep that night. But yeah, like I said, there's a long way to go between now and then. So
absolutely.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. So Jonty, any reaction or any questions going on YouTube channel and so on?
Well, no, I mean, I've already mentioned one of the key ones is a lot of people saying it's about the luck and form. I mean, there was that is one of the things that's been asked as well is about kind of these usual debates about form and fixtures and I mean, we've kind of covered a lot of these already. Really, it's just I mean, as you said, it's you have to play your own game and just get all those cliches, but they do hold up well. And each season, someone's style of play will perfectly fit that season. And it's clear that this season your style of play has just really worked out well.
I want to ask you, Simon, one of the things that we haven't mentioned yet is you obviously mentioned hits, but I mean, you say you delay your transfers to the end. So are you someone who watches price rises, or do you kind of completely dismiss them?
Historically, yeah, but then and this has been one of the real benefits this season is that that there hasn't been a really reliable price rise forum or site for it, and so very early on. I mean, I have to be honest. People won't believe this, but I started off this season more casual than I had done.
Really?
Yeah, and maybe that's made the difference. Obviously, that's changing now, but I sort of said, okay, well, I'll accept a price raise. There's been a few occasions where I knew that I had to act in order to get players in. So, I've got up early in order to make sure that I make that transfer.
I guess that's a factor in you not taking hits as well. Some of the hits I've taken over the years have been because I've done an early transfer. Yeah. I remember a particular early transfer getting Company in on a Saturday night because he was rising, and then on the Sunday he got a red card and a 3-game ban. So I had to take a hit to get rid of him, and it was... I just sighed. But yeah.
It can really go both ways. I mean, the whole some of the stuff I've been seeing on the site is about the whole Maverick versus Dollard debate, and I don't know. I've got a slightly different view of the whole thing. In that I think that the Dollard, as in the conservative approach, tends to work in most games of this type. Be it snooker or poker or whatever.
Steve Davis.
But at the same time, I think you're only a maverick until it works, and then suddenly you become a dullard. Like, for example, people who brought in Yaya Toure last season were mavericks at the time.
That's right. That's right.
That's the wrong way.
That's exactly what we were.
Wow.
It's true though. Yaya Toure, he became dull because it was just his consistency of scoring. But yeah, last season it was because he wasn't he was stealing points from Aguero and all the other players that should be getting them. He's not so lucky this season, but yeah.
So presumably, Simon, you were quickly on Harry Kane. You didn't waste any time there because I was on him quite early as well, and that's obviously served me well. And presumably that was the same. You were quick to pounce on him straight away.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I was. I think I got him at about 5.5, and I definitely. Like I said, I benched him when he scored his 18 points against Chelsea.
So you played Sigurdsson, did you? I bet you did the same.
Yeah, because I also benched Sigurdsson against Liverpool, where I think he scored 10 points, and it was I mean, I've made a lot of mistakes in this fantasy football season so far, but I've made quite common mistakes, and that's definitely helped me a lot. Like if I've made an error, people have seemingly made the same error, and so I've kind of got away with it, so far, touch wood. I was on Harry Kane. Harry Kane's absolute machine, and for the price that he's at, I mean, if you don't have him in this team, I think after last game week, it's really split fantasy football between people who have Harry Kane and don't, and possibly between people who have him captained and didn't. It's been a big kind of watershed moment in the season.
I mean, the thing it just reminded me of usually at the end of seasons, people saying how you define seasons, and it was said we talked about Yaya Toure last season, and one of the things to define last season was this unbelievable consistency of well-owned players like Ramsey and Toure. And then this season, I mean, I'm looking at it already, and I'm thinking I'm going to remember this season for the season of the incredibly profitable cheap forwards with Harry Kane. I can't even. He started some ludicrous 5 million, was it?
Yeah, he was 5. I think he was even.
I mean, it looks absolutely crazy. He's like, the rate he's scoring at. I mean, that's just so cheap. It's absurd. I don't think we've seen that since, say, Andy Carroll when he had that good season. And even he didn't have, a season compared to Kane. And then we've got these options like Charlie Austin. He's still banging them in, and then you've got Berahino and Danny Ings as well. I'll look back at the season and think, this was not the season of the expensive forwards at all. It was really the season of the cheapies.
I think it's been a better season for that. I struggled last year for all kinds of reasons. I didn't get on Ramsey and Toure at all, and they just had consistency. I think this year, we've seen the Kane bandwagon, but we haven't had a player, maybe aside from him, who have dominated. And even if you have missed Kane, you've had no excuse but to get on him because of his price. Whereas last year, if you didn't get on Suarez early enough, then you were really up against it. Same with Toure. His price was just so large that it was very difficult to get him in without making surgery. But this year, the only player who's really done that is Kane. And you've always had the chance. With Aguero, he seems to have gone off the ball again. And I just think it's been a much more interesting season, which is probably not what Simon wants to hear, because as I said earlier, he wants the season to be incredibly dull from this point on. He definitely wants to be a dullard, not a maverick from this point on, which is, it's going to be a very interesting end to the season. Simon, I will end it there, and I just wanted to thank you for coming on and waking up early and talking to us. And sorry we had some technical problems earlier on, but it was great to talk to you, and we've spoken to you at length, and really I want to get you back on in a few weeks' time, but at the same time I don't want to ruin it for you either. So what I might like to do, we'll wait and see how game week 34 goes, I guess, because that's going to be the turning point. There you go. Okay. Yeah, I mean,
I'll just cling to this in the meantime.
You for good luck.
Cuddle it. But it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you, and we wish you all the best for the coming game weeks, and hopefully you'll be in a position after game week 34 where we can talk to you without ever having a risk of cursing it, and hopefully you can continue on in the same vein. But it's been brilliant to catch up with you, and great to have you on the Scoutcast, and you've been a very able replacement for dear old Granville, who is probably in some airport lounge right now, as I say, sipping some red wine and getting over to have defeat. Before we leave, Jonty, we should perhaps talk about give our best wishes to Dusa, I guess, Jonty, because that's a situation some of the community might not know about, but it explains Simon's caption there, Dufflinks plus 42. Jonty, do you want to say some more?
Yeah, so for those, a lot of those listening will know Dusa. He's been a member of the community for, I think it's back 2009. I think he was even before that. But one of his big things is when we introduced in the members area the ability to create your own tables, he just went absolutely insane for it, and he can communicate almost entirely within stats tables now. No words are actually needed. But so he's been a very well respected member of the community for a long time. But he sadly was taken unwell a couple of 2 or 3 weeks ago. We haven't had an update, but as far as we know, he's still in hospital. So hopefully he's on the mend. And as a result, so the plus 42 after Simon's name there, Dufflinks, and I have it on mine as well on the site, and many others do, is in relation to it's a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy themed response about what's the answer to the life of the universe and everything. The number there, 42, and that's something he uses a lot, and so everyone's kind of taken that. I suppose it's the kind of fantasy football scout version of a Je suis Charlie hashtag. So So that's why he has plus 42 after his name. So hopefully Newsreel gets well.
Yeah, we send our best wishes to Doosra, and hopefully he's back on the site soon, and he can join us in cheering you on, Simon, over the final few game weeks of the season. Get well soon, Doosra, and best of luck, Simon. And hello, Granville. Sleep well tonight, and thanks so much, Jonty, for joining us on this very special Scoutcast. Apologies again for the technical problems early on. Hopefully, we can edit this together for the podcast on Thursday, and you'll get to hear Simon's sage-like advice. So thanks again, Jonty, and thanks again, Simon. We'll speak to you in a few weeks. It's a good night for me.
Good night for me.
Good night.
Good night, all.
Good night.